All right, let's dive in. Today, we are tackling one of the most talked about, debated, and, let's be honest, confusing passages in the entire Bible, Revelation chapter 20. This chapter has captivated people for centuries, and we're going to try to break it all down.
So what is all the fuss about? Well, it boils down to this one big idea, the millennium. This single concept has launched entire theological movements, a ton of books, and some really intense arguments. But we're going to cut through the noise and focus on two simple questions. What is the text actually saying? And maybe more importantly, how does it fit into the grand story of the book of Revelation?
So, to help us navigate this, we're going to follow a roadmap laid out by scholar Dr. Dave Mathewson. We'll look at the famous thousand-year reign itself, jump into the three key scenes in the chapter, quickly cover the major interpretations that have popped up over the years, and then we'll try to find the book's real grand finale.
Okay, first things first. We've got to understand how the book of Revelation actually works. It's so tempting to read it like a newspaper headline from the future, a strict chronological play-by-play. But that approach can get you into a lot of trouble really fast. Dr. Mathewson gives us a really great way to think about it. He says, don't think of it as a straight line. Think of it like watching instant replays in a football game. The idea is that the author, John, is showing us the same major event, the second coming of Christ, but from different camera angles. Each replay gives us a new perspective and highlights something different about its meaning. So, with that instant replay idea in our back pocket, let's look at how chapter 20 is actually built. It's not just one continuous story. It's really organized around three distinct scenes, and they all have one big theme in common: judgment. The whole chapter kind of unfolds in three acts. Act 1, an angel comes down and binds Satan, throwing him into a pit. Then, bam, Act 2. The focus totally shifts to the souls of the martyred saints who are brought to life and get to reign with Christ. And finally, Act 3. It all wraps up with this massive great white throne judgment where everyone is judged. Now here's where it gets really cool. Look at that structure. The chapter starts and ends with Satan's judgment, right? But what's sandwiched right in the middle? A scene that's all about the very people he tormented, the saints. The story literally pivots from the bad guy's defeat to the good guy's victory. And this creates this incredible, dramatic flip of the script. If you remember back in chapters 12 and 13, Satan and his cronies were running the show, making life miserable for God's people. But now, in chapter 20, Satan is the one in chains, and the very saints who suffered are the ones sitting on thrones, reigning with Christ. Talk about a reversal of fortune. You see, the point here isn't just about revenge, it's about vindication. It's this public declaration that the faith and suffering of these saints actually meant something. It wasn't for nothing. Their trust in God is shown to be right, for all to see. Now, this idea of a thousand-year reign has had a huge, huge impact over the centuries. I mean, it's pretty wild to think about, but these few verses have become the foundation for entire systems of theology about what we call the end times. So let's quickly break down the three big ones. First up, you've got premillennialism. It's the idea that Christ comes back before he kicks off a literal thousand-year reign on earth. Then there's postmillennialism. This view says the world gets better and better, creating a golden age, the millennium, and then Christ returns at the end of it. And finally, you have amillennialism. This one sees the 1,000 years as a symbolic number for the entire age of the church we're living in right now, between Jesus' first coming and his second. And here's what's so important to remember. For most of Christian history, all three of these views have coexisted. There's no single, official, orthodox position. Really smart, really faithful people have landed in each of these camps, which is probably a good reminder for all of us to talk about this stuff with a little bit of humility.
Okay, so things are obviously a bit complicated. So how are we supposed to read this text without getting totally lost? Well, Dr. Mathewson gives us a few guiding principles that can really help.
So here's the quick rundown. First, numbers in Revelation, like 1,000, are almost always symbolic. They mean something like a complete and perfect amount of time. Second, everything in this chapter is connected to the second coming. Third, remember our instant replay analogy? It's probably not a simple A to B to C timeline. And here's the kicker, and this is a big one. This is the only place in the entire Bible that even mentions a thousand-year reign. And for being so famous, the text is actually super brief and doesn't give us a lot of details. And that last point, that the text is so brief, that leads us to what might be the most important insight of all. I mean, think about it. If this chapter is so central, why is it so short on details? The answer might just change the way you read the entire book of Revelation. Dr. Mathewson makes a compelling case that Chapter 20 was never meant to be the main event. It's the prelude. It's the opening act. Its whole job is to show us the Satan is defeated and the saints are vindicated, all to get the stage set for the real climax of the entire story.
The true fireworks, as he calls them, the grand finale where all of God's promises finally come true. You know, the new heaven, the new earth, the city of God coming down. All of that is in chapters 21 and 22. So the millennium in chapter 20 isn't the destination. It's just a taste of the eternal reign that's to come.
So what this whole analysis does is ask us to shift our focus. Instead of getting bogged down in endless debates about the millennium, it invites us to see it as the prelude. And that reframes everything, leaving us with one last massive question to chew on. If Revelation 20 is just setting the stage, what does that tell us about where the story's true and ultimate climax really is?